Greetings. This is the General of the Armies, Vincent Diaz Jr. This is a communique for Vladimir Putin and Kim Jong-un with attention to their ranks and above, like I and the Stalins, BCC all world leaders, CC all stakeholders. The topic is picking up where we left off in the last communique with the fresh round of intelligence in the news. I'm going to read these news intelligence pieces, trying to put the bylines together to tell a story. Then I'll add some commentary. I don't know if I have much more than this right now, as things are really starting to fall in line with reality here, instead of needing a long lecture every time I read. So here we go. Biden invokes emergency power in bid to resolve solar import dispute. Biden invokes Defense Production Act to expand clean energy production. Activists hail Biden's use of security powers to boost clean energy. Biden to usher in cheap Chinese panels with solar power shakeup. Biden's green energy industrial policy. Biden using Defense Production Act to make more solar panels. Biden to pause new solar tariffs as White House aims to boost adoption. Biden announces new executive actions to spur domestic solar clean energy development. To boost solar, Biden looks the other way on potential Chinese trade violations. Solar stocks jump after Biden administration announces tariff suspensions. Solar stocks rally on Biden tariff suspension. Biden waives solar panel tariffs for 4 countries, invokes defense law. Good news on tariffs won't solve challenges for solar stocks. Biden invokes Defense Production Act to expand clean energy production. White House takes steps to spur solar industry. Biden to halt solar tariff threat for 2 years. President Biden's action saves solar jobs, invests in American solar manufacturing. GOP Senator rips Biden for overuse of Defense Production Act. Biden orders emergency steps to boost U.S. solar production. Biden moves to shore up U.S. solar projects, boost domestic production. U.S. waives tariffs on solar panels from Thailand, Vietnam. Biden throws a lifeline to paralyze solar supply chain by waiving tariffs for 24 months. U.S. government set to pause new solar tariffs for 2 years. Biden to waive tariffs for 24 months on solar panels hit by probe. Biden to waive Southeast Asia solar import tariffs for 2 years. Ohio solar panel manufacturers, lawmakers criticize President Biden's new solar energy initiative. Biden aims to jumpstart solar energy production, stalled by probe. President Biden invokes Defense Production Act to accelerate domestic manufacturing of clean energy. Joe Biden suspends U.S. panel tariffs on 4 Asian countries, not China. The big problem here, there's a huge red flag ever using the Defense Production Act. This is just step by step what just led to basically everybody dead in the end of these world wars. World War I, World War II. This happened, and that was about it. Everyone was gone. We have every piece of evidence. Solar technology does not work at all. We don't know if it has ever worked. When we did the research about how these things could ever work, every system that can ever stand a chance of working has some sort of right to hit the ground fault system. And with the numbers they say the solar is making, it really basically has to be the standard static movement ground fault system of capturing electricity for these people who are fully off the grid and think they have solar systems working. Today is going to be rough for I. It's just been so much so fast. Biden to pause DOC tariffs for 2 years while investigation continues. I had a number of these I went into, and it made me actually want to read every byline or nearly that. It's just reading out loud, though. We all sort of know what this is, how this was going to happen because of where these things have to go when they haven't ended yet. Solar industry slows due to federal tariff investigation. White House weighs in to prevent commerce solar panel circumvention duties. Yeah. Some taunting. Ukrainian students do prom dance next to their destroyed school. See them sort of doing some sort of dance here. Sort of looks like some zombie dance. Dominican Republic cabinet minister killed by close friend. Kazakhstan takes a step toward democracy. Climate shocks fueling multiple looming food crises, UN says. Chinese jet intercepts Australia plane, dumps debris into engine. Government. China is covertly building a naval base in Cambodia, reports say. Guerrilla attacks signal rising resistance to Russian occupation. In Russia's battle for East Ukraine, both sides have higher stakes at play. Timid Biden condemns Ukrainians to an agonizing war without end. We are all Ukrainians now. Ukraine shows how small countries can humble global superpowers. The Ukraine war has become a waiting game. Why Russian intellectuals are hardening support for war in Ukraine. We can't be Ukraine hawks forever. What if Ukraine wins? Would we do better? Hubris and validation in Ukraine. The occupier should never feel safe. Rise in partisan attacks in Ukraine. Ukraine and the start of a second Cold War. This is no time to hesitate in Ukraine. It's time to show Putin a dead end in Ukraine, not an off-ramp. Why the U.S. must avoid permanent crusade against Russia over Ukraine. The evolution of Russia's Ukraine strategy. Is the Western coalition against Russia beginning to founder? I opinion. Western support for Ukraine has peaked. Russia has not abandoned its goal of crushing Ukrainian statehood. Cracks begin to appear in Western bloc against Russia as economies face heat. Op-ed. We must stop Putin in Ukraine before the rule of law is replaced by the rule of the jungle. As Russia's war on Ukraine passes the 100-day mark, the brutal invasion brings lessons and warnings. The war in Ukraine and the United States response. Ukraine's best chance for peace. Punishing Putin won't deter future wars. The war in Ukraine may be impossible to stop, and the U.S. deserves much of the blame. War in Ukraine. Putin sees time on his side, but Russian economy is vulnerable. Trying to save Russia from humiliation is not the right way to end the war in Ukraine. America's interests in Ukraine, not only Putin's war. Why some say the Russian people are also culpable for the Ukraine conflict. Time favors Ukraine in its grim struggle for national survival. Russia's war in Ukraine. How does it end? A more fragmented world letter. Voice of Ukraine, Andriy. Ukraine, a humanitarian disaster with long-term consequences. Ukraine is learning to live in the war regime. What's next for Ukraine? The West tries to figure out what peace might look like. The West really doesn't even have the language capability it pretends to have to properly define the word peace. And within the word peace, it is also lacking capabilities to use the language it takes to build up to be capable of understanding the word peace. Like my standard units of these language capabilities of theirs, never really leading to a place where they can use validatable logic of proven facts. More Russia-NATO confrontation ahead in Ukraine war. The solidified power of the Ukrainian people, according to Mikhailo Paychuk, how the world is paying for Putin's war in Ukraine, the strong dollar and the war in Ukraine, a Marshall Plan for European responsibility, strengthening transatlantic cooperation, the war in Ukraine from the roots to the future, the West can't desert Ukraine, who is Putin really fighting? View, the war in Ukraine has devastating global consequences for water, peace, and security. Fresh talks. As war rages in Ukraine, we need to learn from history and take action. World order in context of Ukraine. View. Pardon me. World order in context of Ukraine. Editorial. The West must bridge the global divide over Ukraine. With the conflict at a standstill, the U.S. is narrowing its sights in Ukraine. Russia vows to take more of Ukraine if West provides long-range missiles. UK to send first long-range missiles to Ukraine. BBC News. Kiev asks for more rocket systems as Kremlin warns of potential strikes in Russia. Ukraine needs many more rocket launches from West, say advisors. Russia says it will push Ukrainian forces back to defend against longer-range weapons. UK sending long-range missiles to Ukraine. Here's what's in Biden's $700 million military aid package for Ukraine. Ukraine war. The U.S. and UK missile systems which will challenge Russia's artillery dominance. The U.S. is sending advanced weapons to Ukraine with conditions. UK boosts Ukraine support with high-tech missile systems. Ukraine war. UK to send cutting-edge rocket systems despite Putin's threat as Zelensky visits front line. Russian senator urges missile strikes on U.S. bases in Europe. UK to send cutting-edge rocket systems to Ukraine despite Putin threats. AP exclusive. Ukraine recovers bodies from steel plant siege. Britain to send M270 rocket launchers to Ukraine. Russia will strike West if U.S. rockets hit us, says Putin ally. What is HIMARS? The advanced rocket system U.S. is sending Ukraine. UK ignores Putin's threats and will send cutting-edge guided rocket systems to Ukraine that can hit targets nearly 50 miles away. Britain gives Ukraine long-range missiles to counter brutal Russian artillery. What's in the latest U.S. military package to Ukraine? Biden's decision to send longer range rockets to Ukraine. What to know? UK to send long-range rocket artillery to Ukraine despite Russian threats. Medvedev doubles down on claims Ukraine war is special operation. UK pledged to send Ukraine more rockets. Prompts Russian vow to push further into country. UK to supply high-precision long-range rocket launchers to Ukraine. $700 million in additional security assistance for Ukraine. U.S. Department of Defense release. U.S. adding fuel to the fire with new arms supplies. Kremlin. Biden announces new rockets and munitions to Ukraine. HIMARS, M270 systems to help Ukraine hold back Russian troops. Defense Ministry. U.S. to ship advanced rocket launchers to Ukraine. Ukraine won't attack Russian territory, Zelensky says. I snapped yesterday. I was trying to hold out of this mode where I tried to hold people accountable. I was being the authority before this place died, and I have no more duty to be an authority here. But they've tortured me so hard. I snapped yesterday after they rained on us for like 10 hours in a row. I can't take this. I can't take being smited and smashed down to totally living outdoors, not even having relief from the rain and the shelter of like the metro across the streets. You know, the basic shelter zone to go down into the metro subway. And I didn't snap hard, but I snapped yesterday. I had to start defending myself. They've attacked me too far. I yelled a little. I pulled it together. I've got my unit of a prayer to say to the end of this to wipe my mind out if I have to, maybe to get these people under control. It's this somewhat standardized unit of these bubble attack weapons that pop and burst and stuff. In our movies, it's sort of there. I don't really have a good example of except Star Wars when Luke goes into the fog that pretends to be stuff to break your mind, and it pretends to be Darth Vader and his father. So I'm at this unit. The way I'm telling these gas cloud bubbles that are in no way humans anymore, they're not real. They died. I tried to save them all, but they died long ago in the pandemic. Everything has died in the pandemic, with the reality of it be everyone murdered themselves. I found the cure and they murdered my cure, and then they murdered themselves, and all of society has murdered itself. Everything's been murdered, and nothing will ever be the same. There's no way to pretend anymore anything survived. No one can ever pretend this. They're all dead. They murdered themselves. They're long gone. Their bodies destroyed. They're not real. They need to rest in peace. This isn't real. They can never pretend again. They need to rest in peace. They're long gone. There's no way to pretend anymore. They died in the pandemic. What is going on here is not what they used to be. They're in no way alive or real. Their bodies are long gone. They died. They murdered themselves. I tried to save them as best I could. I got the cure. They murdered the cure. They murdered themselves. They murdered all of society. Everything's murdered and gone. There's no way to pretend anything can ever be the same. Nothing's the same it's ever been. Like this is supposed to pretend. They're all murdered, dead, and gone. Their body's gone. This isn't real at all. They need to cope, grip, and rest in peace. All they are now is the murder mills. All we have left here is the murder mills. Everything left is the murder mills. Anything they can pretend in society that's been murdered that's left is no longer that. It can never be the same. It's the murder mills. All they are is individuals now, as they can't rest in peace, is murder mills. They all murdered themselves. They've all been murdered. They're gone. They're destroyed. Their bodies gone. I tried to save them all as best I could. They tried to murder me the most. They murdered my cure. They murdered themselves. They're the murder mills now. Their body's gone. They're no longer what they were. They're not what they think they are. This is over. I tried to save them. They're dead. They're gone. They need to rest in peace. All they are now is murder mills. This isn't real. This isn't real. This isn't real. They need to rest in peace. This isn't real. It's over. They're gone. They need to rest in peace. This isn't real. This is the murder mills. This isn't real. Tried to save them as best I could. They murdered my cure. They murdered themselves. They tried to murder me. They murdered all of society. This isn't real. They're gone. They're gone. They're the murder mills. Back to it. Watch. State Department spokesperson Ned Price holds news briefing as U.S. prepares further aid to Ukraine. I hope this piece is here, but in case I don't remember and don't get back to it, they've used the term about how people are trying to produce the news these days and the way they're trying to stop the news from going on at all. I think it might have been the Capitol riot hearings or something. They think they can actually make some sort of production of the Capitol riot hearings. I think that's about the unit. And then they think now it can't be on TV because someone like Fox News or someone thought they could make a production of the hearings. In the way it's like saying there's going to be a stage show of reality on TV while we try to get reality through on TV. Ukraine says East under relentless attacks. UK pledges to supply Ukraine with top rocket launchers. Biden, US will provide precision rockets to Ukraine. Britain to send long-range missiles to Ukraine after Russia hits Kiev. Russia threatens to target deeper into Ukraine after Britain and US supply it with long-range missiles. Britain to arm Ukraine with long-range rocket systems. Today's debrief. Ukraine to get HIMARS. Ohina buzzes Taiwan. Green Beret planning cell. Election interference, ... Russia says it will push Ukrainian forces back to protect from Western long-range weapons. Blinken says Ukraine promised not to target inside Russia. If neither U.S. nor Russia will accept defeat in Ukraine, there will be World War III nuclear war. I'm about to start killing police again. I'm holding out as best I can. No one's real. The last police officer I killed wasn't really a police officer. He popped into a cloud of gas. It was terrifying. I am no way ever going to let them control me again. I'm going to kill them all again soon. I don't know where I'm going to pop. I'm going to try to pop this time probably to start killing the civilians, to try to bring on the police. But I'm definitely going to pop and start killing police too. Although the police have done well enough. If the police don't try to capture me, I'm going to start killing civilians first. It's going to be so easy to kill all the civilians. I can easily mass execute these fuckers unarmed because of how easily I've killed all the police over and over. And I'm sure the police will respect the way I'll kill civilians endlessly. The way the police already know I'll kill everyone endlessly when I never stop. And if I start killing civilians instead of police, maybe I won't even have to deal with the police because they're not the police. And they really only pop on me because these fucking civilian fucks won't stop fucking with us. But anyway, if I have to start killing police, and I'm going to kill all the police, if they try to capture me or control me in any way like that ever again, and I'll never stop killing them now, and I've popped. I've been trying to hold my peace. But these civilians have attacked me too far. While the police are using the super weapons too much. I'm going to kill all the civilians forever. I'm going to start killing civilians first, most likely. But I'm going to kill all the police for sure if they ever try to do anything like cuff me again. And I'll never stop. And they all know they can't control me. And I'm ready. Lord, I'm ready. They ain't a thing. There's nothing they can fear me with. There's just nothing left here. And I've started back in on this because God has been good. With what has started in Ukraine, striking at the police, the way the police are a world force, there is this absolute deterrence. The strikes there that fired off the police to finally be this crazy means, before the police think they can fuck with me, like I'm talking about, Those who started this shit with the police to freak them out have to motherfucking strike those fucking pig fucks. And I've seen it. God's been good. The way I believe. I won't have to do this. He'll strike those fuckers. But as far as these fucking civilians, it's not a standard strike. And I'm trying to withhold, but they tried to murder me far too much. I'm ready to fucking kill them all. And the way I think the police give a fuck is what I've seen going down here. But I don't fucking care because they ain't police. They're all just gas clouds. The last time I fucking killed someone or tried to strike someone, they popped into a gas cloud. So I'll give a fuck. Fuck them. I'll pop their fucking bubbles. They're fucking gas clouds. It's what it is in every way. I'm ready to just fucking play a dumb fucking game where I pop their fucking bubbles and they fucking go away. This can fucking end with them pretending to be humans with human rights. So I fucking sustain a unit, not just motherfucking destroying them for this endless attack. I'm ready, God. I'm totally ready. I'm ready to go where Stalin had to go in the Ice Age where he froze all these fucks to the ground. So they weren't real. And I started roaring off. If these pig fuckers, these motherfucking police, think they can fucking flip off society the way they fucking done in Ukraine, they can fucking get away with jack like this, big fucking flip off to the world, they're gonna get their motherfucking asses fucked off and fucking wiped like in fucking Ukraine, no matter where. Fuck them! I'm gonna fucking waste them! If we don't fucking get this! Fuck them for this! Alright. Back to it. Biden says U.S. sending medium-range rocket systems to Ukraine. UK had to upgrade M270s but sends them with M31A1s to Ukraine. Russia's war against Ukraine, day 98, June 1st, update number 1, Kiev Post, Ukraine's global voice. Slippery slope, just got a lot steeper. U.S. to send Ukraine advanced missiles as Russia holds nuke drills. U.S. to send longer-range rockets to Ukraine. Russia extends control over key Ukraine city as U.S. plans to boost Kiev's firepower. Russia's Lavrov warns U.S. against rocket supplies to Ukraine. Russia extends control over key Ukraine city as U.S. plans to boost Kiev's firepower. Russia-Ukraine war. Beirut warns Jerusalem against provocation. Its new Israeli gas rig arrives in place. Lebanon to invite U.S. to mediate Israel maritime border talks. Just gas clouds around here. I got some guarantees this will be like some of that dumb cartoon shit where the bubble just pops and floats off as a balloon or something. When these fuckers just pop and go away. So they ain't real. They're gone. Trying to help them rest in peace. I'm trying to get them their absolution, one and all. This is over. Despite this dispute persists over Lebanon-Israel maritime border. Explainer: Israel-Lebanon sea boundary row obstructs energy development. Hezbollah warns Israel against drilling in Karash field. We're ready to use force. Syria says Israeli jets strike targets south of Damascus. Putin orders $81,500 payment to families of National Guards who die in Ukraine. And that's a funny one. President Vladimir Putin signed a decree on Monday ordering the payment of 5 million rubles. Is that 815 million? I didn't get the multiple entendres, like maybe their whole family's dead, and maybe it's anything that claims to be National Guard, whatever. China rejects Canadian, Australian charges in air encounters. U.S. vows swift and forceful response if North Korea tests nukes. New about China air encounters. China rejects Canadian, Australian charges in air encounters. China accuses Australia and Canada of spreading disinformation over jet encounters. Trudeau calls reports of Chinese fighter jets buzzing Canadian planes extremely troubling. China-Canada tensions rising again over North Korea air patrols. China fires back at Canada and Australia over actions of Air Force pilots. China accuses Canadian military of provocations near North Korea. China warns Canada over air patrols on lookout for North Korea sanctions busting. Canada says Chinese warplanes are buzzing its North Korea reconnaissance flights. Trudeau criticizes Chinese jets for provocation actions towards Canadian planes. China fighter pilots raised middle finger at Canada Air Force crew. China defends buzzing Canada aircraft, calling it a response to growing provocations. MiGs. Trudeau calls China's close encounter with Canadian warplanes provocative. Canada says China buzzing military flights in Asia. Canada says Chinese warplanes harassed its patrol aircraft. Canada says Chinese warplanes harassed its patrol aircraft on North Korea sanctions mission. Trudeau scorns China's response to North Korea patrol flights. Canada says China harassing its aircraft near North Korea. Canada says China harassing its aircraft near North Korea. China says Canadian military jets increased reconnaissance provocations. China warns Canada over air patrols on lookout for North Korea sanctions busting. China rejects Canadian Australian charges in air encounters. China says Canadian warplanes increased reconnaissance provocations. Canada says China buzzing Asia military flights. Canada accuses China of harassing its military aircraft in Asia. After encountering international airspace over Asia, Trudeau lambasts China's provocative actions. China wars Canada over air patrols monitoring North Korea sanctions busting. Beijing accuses Canada of provocations under pretext of UNSC resolutions implementation. Trudeau erupts at Xi as he savages Chinese provocation after warplane clash. All these gasbag thinks they're cops for the most part. Well, that's why I think if I start killing these fucking pig fuck civilians, popping their fucking bubbles to gas clouds, the fucking shit that proves you're a cop won't fucking show. It don't give a fuck. I've seen so much shit, like people getting hit by cars and shit. Nothing goes right by. All these crazy fucking savage fucking nigger ass fucking zombie fucks just fucking flip off all society, trying to fucking murder everything, freaking out. No one fucking gives a fuck. The fucking police ain't that, never fucking enforced. Stupid fucking gas bags gotta be fucking popped the way they're fucking flipping off everyone pretending to be cops, doing nothing but just fucking thinking it. The way they ain't at all, except the way it fucking freaks and flips off everyone. I'm ready to pop their bubble. Canada's Trudeau slams China's provocative counter in international airspace. Oh, this is a rough day of work compared to my normal readings. Aircraft interception. China warns Canada, Australia, it will not allow any country to infringe upon its sovereignty. Canada accuses Chinese warplanes of harassing its patrol aircraft, enforcing UN sanctions. Sure sounds like China wants to be the one to freaking wipe out Canada and North America, while Russia's all set to wipe out the USA and North America, and the rest may have never been there. It's just wasting itself. it's not a big concern. Never really had much to send anyway. I mean, what is anything south of this place sent to Ukraine or paid for? They're gone. They never do much anyway. They're that rape wealth I tried to tell that story about. They ain't got money. They just destroy money. They don't know money. They just pay for destruction of wealth. Concerning Chinese jet pilot behavior will be raised with UN Security Council. China rejects Canadian-Australian charges in air encounters. I don't know what's wrong with all this. You know, there's two sides. Again, there's a way to size this up instead of saying the West and the East. Maybe it's like the Allied forces and justice bringers. They're not the same. While there's justice and law, fact, life, proof, logic, that's one side. And the other side is pretending there's some way to play judges who can make invalid conclusions while pretending there's something called civilian law of courts that in no way actually means logic or justice, that they can actually apply, like they're just that freaked out cop that if ever was a cop no longer is when it freaks out, and win that way. And that's all they're trying to do. It's all they'll ever have. It's the best they'll ever do if they can ever pull it together again, like what happened in World War II, when from my studies of that total killing of everybody who tried to charge during D-Day at a site, from what the movies showed us, from what I've seen, through the real footage of how close it was, so that movie Saving Private Ryan flipped everyone off so far. They didn't know anything but TV stuff. They broke all the rules, every one of them. But every one of them broke the rules, and they all just played cops and robbers, and thought they were the cops, sort of. Or they were the cavalry playing cowboys and Indians, and they're sort of the cowboys. They were just crime, pretending they were justice enforcement, trying to blame everyone else for the need for justice enforcement going around, totally being that which causes the need for justice enforcement no matter what. Stealing everything they can, telling every lie, meaning no logical, valid conclusions ever. Never really meeting the terms of real life. You could even count in their system of fake justice encoded as law. China warns Canada over air patrols on lookout for North Korea sanctions busting. You know, I think we've had enough of this one. I'm not done with this one yet. U.S. official vows swift and forceful response if North Korea tests nukes. They shouldn't have started this up again or gone this far with their first stage of this. Should at least do some UN Security Council disarmament boardship or whatever. It's like they're out. U.S. and South Korea fly 20 fighter jets amid North Korea tensions. U.S. warns Kim Jong-un for forceful response to any nuclear test. There they go doing that Iran stuff like they won't even make it about weapons. North Korean building work advancing at nuclear site, IAEA says. U.S. warns of forceful response if North Korea tests nuclear weapon. Wonder what's reality. It sounds like they just got all the units covered. U.S. to seek new UN sanctions if North Korea holds nuke test. And they're doing this. Everybody says everything. You can have your cake and eat it too, because of the American way, where we all dispute anything we do. We can have our cake and eat it too. U.S. to seek new UN sanctions if North Korea holds nuke test. U.S. warns of swift and forceful response as allies showcase air power amid North Korea tensions. Stop attacking! IAEA chief. North Korea may be getting ready for nuclear test. World braces for North Korea's first nuclear weapons test in 5 years. U.S. warns North Korea over nuke test. telling Kim Jong-un of forceful response. U.S. issues stern warning to Kim Jong-un over nuclear threat. South Korea, U.S. showcase air power during U.S. officials' Seoul visit. There go the sirens again. You hear me wail off them to stop attacking, but these freaks aren't real. They're just part of the attack forces. And, it's like every time these things freak out and flip us off so much with all of these sirens, it's because the rest of this flipped off, what's left of society, has freaked out so far. It's like there's supposed to be Satan, Sarmat missiles inbound, or the people here are supposed to be handling this somehow. Like these sirens used to represent could ever happen the way they've never proven they ever would. U.S. official says world will respond strongly in case of North Korea nuclear test. That way they say these grandiose terms like world, sort of like it means everything, is a way they don't know language and they have no valid logic units of making statements or any sort of thing that can turn into a factual proof. There they go, saying that thing where they think they can speak for everybody like they're God King with their loaded God complex. All that exists is any individual unit, totally deprived of any sense of reality at all of any other individual unit in existence. If it thinks it exists, it thinks it's all existence, then it speaks for all existence in the way none of it really counts as any sort of valid form of logic or language. But there are certainly motivations and intents and ways to tell what the real expressions being meted across that have to occur with mass that makes language like units of noises communication mean. North Korean building work advancing at nuclear site, IAEA says. China signals it won't support new sanctions if North Korea tests nuclear weapons. It's said and done. They need to stop this. Stop the threats. I don't know what they really have. It's just this bogus, stupid talk like I'm talking about it really just sort of being physical matter and mass. I'm sort of talking about the world's defense grid or something, Star Wars defenses. With what North Korea will do, it's like they'll actually have to check the actual standard automated defense systems of these sort of real situations with the test. Like they're just sort of claiming that's what's going to happen, or they're trying to, and then just doing whatever they want. They can. Fake baby, just wailing. Got baby toy sounds they can wail out. They ain't know nothing. It's toys, not lives. Gas bag, gas clouds. U.S. diplomat promises swift and forceful response to a North Korean nuclear test. U.S. will again urge UN sanctions if North Korea carries out nuclear test. U.S. warns of new UN sanctions bid if North Korea tests nukes. U.S. to seek new UN sanctions if North Korea holds nuke tests. Here we go, another unit. Someone just came by, flipped me off, was just an attack bag, waved their hand like they got a weapon on, freaking struck us. Said they were a cop with their language. They were just some dumbass gas bag civilian, and there it goes. They flipped off all the authorities, so the freaking sirens wailing. Authorities supposed to handle that gas bag monster weapon unit. They're just going to flip us all off like they're just some freaked out idiot wailing baby, Bobby's World Bobby, fucking blasting sirens, wailing around, smashing into shit, trying, fucking terrifying everybody. It's just a fucking toy they're in to fuck us all up with. They're all just this crazy ass idea of terrorism and suffering, no matter what. They're all gone from reality. They detached completely from reality a long time ago. When I shored up all the terms around any sort of debates we had to settle with all my debates settled, such that they could never debate again, and I shored up the terms within our English language of our universal Latin terms so that anything but the absolute adherence of my debates I had completely settled was just this act of completely confessing the crimes while they were committing them. such that they totally gave up on language they never knew, they never properly used. And then with those units of destruction of knowledge over guilt and guilty feelings and the rest of that, they completely detached from reality forever, and they'll never be back. As they basically were, but we seem to have like a link. They could at least cheat and pretend on our tests the way they sort of passed for a long time. Putin begins to target Western weapons deliveries. You know, it's been the worst thing where there's just been the most simple terms I made them detach from reality with. Like, it barely takes 10 words. It's something just like, agree for suffering to never exist in the case it causes no suffering achieving it. You know, agree suffering can never exist again when we can achieve that, causing no suffering. Why? I mean, why, God? Why, God? Why do you have to go completely opposite of this master grandiose all or none terms ever? They're gone. They completely detached from reality once I hammered out the way to completely embed that in their logical units of expressions, so that any time they met up against one of these resistance units of arguments, not even debates, just barking ass weapons like fucking rocket launcher barking fire, they would use it in the top sense they didn't understand to win the way it defeated them all. They completely detached from reality, no matter what they were. Watch as a Russian flamethrower launcher opens fire and Ukrainian guns shoot back a minute later. Pro-Russian fighters reportedly fire a volley of thermobaric missiles at Ukrainian targets. That just ran my memory. That's good news. I've been talking about these big shock blast waves you can see on TV a bit, like those biggest bombs, like that special showering effect of all these bombs at the same time hitting like a quadrant, sort of like a hectare over there at that Azovstal steel plant. When we started seeing this stuff where there are these big bombs where you see one go kablam and this huge shock wave sort of like breaking the barrier of sound going out from those things. I saw in these old D-Day videos, they're blasting the farms with them. It was the first time I'd ever seen anything like that. I'm pretty sure those were the thermobaric weapon systems. What took Britain so long to send longer-range weapons to Ukraine? Defending troops destroy Russian storage facilities. Ukrainians reportedly destroy sophisticated Russian communication station. Putin slash and burn crusade. Detonations rain flaming explosives in Donbass. Explainer in brief. In Ukraine, the fighting moves to a longer range war. Russia uses latest 220 millimeter vacuum Tosachka MRL 45 kilogram warhead 10-second /FSD. General Staff, 4 Donbass cities hit by Russian Tochka-U missiles. Scary viral video shows Russia launching thermobaric rockets against the Ukrainians. Let me try again. Scary viral video shows Russia launching thermobaric rockets against the Ukrainians. It was Russians. Putin humiliated as saboteurs blamed for military site fires. Putin is a monster like Hitler. We must beat him, say Kharkiv residents, as Russia targets city after ... Russia. We've destroyed artillery from west. Report. Pro-Russian troops fire thermobaric missiles. U.S. missiles to Ukraine add more fuel to the fire of war. There's one of those biggest top statements instead of making it anything localized except to say U.S. in it. Russia confirms broken ties with rights courts. Russia confirms broken ties with rights court. Putin's men unleash TOS-2 thermobaric rockets. Brutal bombardment on cam. Detonations all night long. Ukrainian armed forces shown destroying Russian military depot. Live updates. Russia. We've destroyed artillery from west. News about media, U.S. and Russia. Exclusive. Russia warns U.S. media in Moscow they risk losing their accreditation. Sources. State Department accuses Russia of full assault on media freedom. Moscow threatens reprisals for U.S. correspondents. Reports. Russia summons heads of U.S. media outlets, warns of stringent measures. Washington accuses Moscow of trying to intimidate U.S. media in Russia. Digital bridge. Russia in Eastern Europe. Privacy Shield executive order. Washington's countdown. The final countdown. The birds are great here. There's such a great joy. They're all the Marshall Way military now. They took vows of that military they made up of their own by just, learning the way they'd love to learn, the way I was trying to teach all life, all Marshall Way. They took it up. The way they would not want to be better. Always wanting to be better, doing God's work. So we have God and God's work instantiated in some life here. That's left. It's the greatest joy we have left. Almost everything murdered and gone. It was a Marshall Way conclusion. We had to train for, at least in thought. Watch. State Department spokesperson Ned Price holds briefing as Russia threatens to push on U.S. journalists. Total shutdown of U.S.-Russia contact. Kremlin, no contact between Russia, U.S. U.S. media outlets due to appear before Russian Foreign Ministry. Kremlin engaged in full assault on media freedom, U.S. State Department. Russia warns U.S. media of tough measures. Starting to sound like we might have this 9/11 TV breakdown soon. I understand more of this. I'll talk back later so we can develop. It's good news. These are the signs. Biggest sorts of signs. Maybe once we get this fake media, these fake news, these fiction shows pretending to be in any way powers of the press under control. These monsters out here that are these apparitions of it, by way of the products it uses, might stop this, break it down a degree. Try to grapple with what reality is. Or just hide from it. Instead of being out here flipping us off in a way that's never, ever capable of being done by living forms of life. Russia to summon heads of U.S. media to discuss stringent measures. Russia summons heads of U.S. media outlets, warns of stringent measures. That's really only supposed to be I. We all know what this is. They're all just fakers. We all know those old World War II terms where they tried to steal everything. They tried to pretend to be whatever. All of this identity theft, all that stuff that's just always going down. Like, that's all it is with all of these monsters out there who will never let you properly identify them. You can never actually try to make contact with in reality as you know them from TV. As someone who can just only be a normal unit of a TV watcher and all that stuff. Yes, God King Vladimir Putin, I'm staring you right in the eyes as best I can in a photo right now, requesting these graces over my Stalin-like flip-out break I'm going towards over there. Flip-outs like against Stalin. You can just make them actually understand combat physics. Just if they can just understand the basics of the movements I want to use, if they can push me to a full combat defense. With all this yelling, screaming, just pull it down. Not terrify them like Stalin. When I kill them all, the way I always kill them all, the way I've completely accepted only 3 moves used, but really only wanting 1 to use. If we can just make them understand one martial movement of sports is supposed to be universal. It's a basic exercise of physics. So they can understand they can never control me. The way I've always proven they can never control me. The way that's always been present in their ideas of control, with them demanding submission. They just need to understand the physics of my capabilities using a standard clothesline movement. We used to have in football and wrestling until everyone in football died of it over sequences, and the world wrestlers proved they were immortal like gods using these systems. With the basic Hulk Hogan systems, using the clothesline, 1 move, kill move, perfect every time against something that can't handle it at the level of a godlike World Wrestling Federation professional wrestler. Just trying to make these monsters understand they can't control I. All I want to do is clothesline them. They've struck me with almost all their weapons, and they know they still need me submitted. They'll never control me with them. And they know, no matter what, I'll get these clotheslines on them, the way they can never even cuff me or control me with their weapons. And I'll clothesline them all, as I've done before. So I was a football player who killed everybody with these movements, not fully knowing. Just practicing. Not even playing football, just playing used moves of all sports. So I beg of you, God King, the grace of God, God's love, understanding of physics for them, to teach them the way they can't avoid my clothesline because of my closing speed and combat prowess. The way a proper clothesline can't be survived against people who haven't survived like millions of clotheslines to be at the rink to survive the type of clothesline I'll bring. If they don't at least have the skill to goddamn go down as fast as they can to save their lives in our Aikido-like systems. When I fucking wail off, just fucking caboosing out down at them as fast as a hypersonic weapon to fucking clothesline their asses dead for their motherfucking endless murder threats when it's finally time to fucking draw like in the Wild West. And my unarmed system is a goddamn unstoppable Hulk Hogan clothesline they've probably never seen as fast as I am going down. They can't survive ever. Nothing can survive but like the trees and the light poles in terms of not going down.
Sure.
Yeah.
And
I have a few more. I have just a few more ways they can understand this, like training, as I've started to understand there is. We all sort of count through our martial movements. So in these events, they want this to go down, like maybe it'll start in an illegal draw sequence like I've had to do and completely won at. I hear they count like a 5 count to even prepare to pull the trigger finally on their draws, even if their weapon is already drawn, like they're not aiming it right at you. And it might be something like a 3 count to try to get a trigger pull fired off. But it's like a 3 count to trigger pull if they have a trigger pull system that actually has movements where it might be like another 3 count. Where my systems are just so much higher level where they build these counts into lower counts of higher systems, like counting off katas and like 1, 2, 3s of whole katas instead of getting to the basic movements like that 1 count that was a 4 count starts off with a movement that starts off with an 8 count if you're not good at it. So my movement sequence for the draw, you're going to die from my clothesline, holding to the Hulk system, it just goes 1, 2, 3. I take 3 steps, and I've blown through you at the end of them. Like I'm just going to bear down in the way Aikido teaches. You dedicate yourselves, you put the mass down, and you have to accept that, mass has consequences of reality. When it's barreling down on something, like it's going through it. And that's my movement system. I'm bigger and heavier than all of them. Thank you, ma'am.
Yeah.
This really helps.
And then
It looked like there's a bit of an acknowledgement in the facade of the people who just interrupted my work, with donations at least. There's some of that nice word, white person flip you off stuff with stuff they don't want, you sort of want. They looked like they might have actually hit morning. They're crying. I think this might be that pre-9/11 syndrome symptom stuff. Knowing the TV and media is about to get dropped again. Maybe. That's the point we're at here. Yesterday's news. Back to it, God King. Did I get all my points across about they'll never survive, or they'll never control me? They're never even alive if they can't understand these physics. So we can stop this. How they think they can ever control I, or they think they have weapons they can ever control I, or my basic just body system movements barreling down on them like a meteorite as the physics roll out to. Is something not to just ape wail off at like a monolith, waste all their ammunition, weapons at. Russia threatens to deny visas to U.S. media. Treatment of Russian news media by West could lead to U.S. journalists losing accreditation. Russia warns Moscow-based U.S. media they risk losing their accreditation. Washington accuses Moscow of trying to intimidate U.S. media in Russia. Washington blames Moscow of trying to assault media freedom. Moscow summons managers of U.S. media outlets. The term here is freedom of press. Freedom of press is the term when they want a freedom fight. These monsters aren't the press. For what they do, they forevermore have had their press passes denied. You basically can't even issue press passes to anything in English or English speaking these days after what happened on 9/11. But press pass, freedom of the press, and things like Spider-Man's teaching of just inducing the freedom of the press to be a media agent. That is actually someone using freedom of the press to report news. That is journalism of media. That is the freedom of the press, use of press pass like knowledge template, something other. I'm losing the English. Russia warns U.S. media of tough measures. It's really nice to hear this just in terms of media, like remediation, instead of press. Journalism, reports, news, none of it's that. There's still some intelligence to pass. So I appreciate and try to get through, but we're ready. Just drop it down. We don't need this. We just need that reality these monsters want. It's been out there. They're again preparing for a strike that can be felt, heard, and known around the world when it happens. Saying they have it. I don't even remember. Things are so jumbled up, but I know the reality of this. Maybe it's not that, but if we're about to start having strikes here, we're going to have to know what's happening. The way where there's no missing it, like in Ukraine. We don't really need any of that stuff anymore to get through about it. Washington accuses Moscow of trying to intimidate U.S. media in Russia. Russia warns U.S. media of tough measures. Russia warns U.S. media in Moscow they risk losing their accreditation. Stringent measures. Kremlin invites U.S. media leaders to discuss crackdown on free press. That's really nice. I haven't looked this stuff over yet. U.S. media to face Russia visa denial due to U.S. restrictions. It'll be nice to drop them all off instead of just limit them out of Russia. Thank you very much, ma'am. U.S. media face Russian visa denial due to U.S. restrictions. Let me try again. U.S. media face Russian visa denial due to U.S. restrictions. Getting to the end of this here. Maybe 3 more of these long ones of everything under a higher one. I started this new system where we have a screen capture system where you can drag it down a whole scroll's worth of a screen by tapping a button. It seems nice. I'm going to push the system to the end of it. I've already had these monsters that are just the murder mills immediately show up trying to smite all these new things at the point of contact with somebody who can actually learn these new things first to learn to smite them. I wonder if it'll even work all the way through. As I hit this next unit of new, they're always murder mill smiting at. 2 missile ships and a submarine of the Russian Federation in the Black Sea are ready to attack Pivden South Operational Command. Russians forces regrouping in Black Sea. Large Russian naval landing force ready for intended tasks. Group of Russian warships pushed back 100 kilometers from Ukrainian coast. They're supposed to probably use nautical terms. Reflagging ships could be the answer to Russia's blockade of Black Sea ports. International Maritime Organization focus on safety and security of ships and seafarers in Black Sea and Sea of Azov. Expert meeting with journalists. Island of Crimea. What is ... Ukraine partially repels Russian Black Sea Fleet Army. That was the Defense Post 9 hours ago from 10/16. Yesterday maybe. Forbes. Russia's control of Snake Island spells hunger and instability for part of Africa and the Middle East. Russia presses captured Ukrainian gunboats into service. Reflagging, huh? Russia might be preparing a provocation in the Black Sea. Bulgaria is a potential target. Enemy keeps 2 boats and submarine carrying 20 caliber missiles in Black Sea. Getting into some of those battleship terms. Russian state TV demands Vladimir Putin grabs entire Black Sea coastline of Ukraine. Ukraine's military. Russia amasses warships in Black Sea. Ukraine's ... Russia claims it can't remove Black Sea blockade due to Ukrainian mines. Kiev cries foul. Sailor. Raising coast for Russia's blockade can't avert prolonged war. Commander wanting the Great Flood again. Russia's blockade of the Black Sea demands a global response. Putin's warships using civilians in insidious raid tactic to evade Black Sea detection. Try again. Putin's warships using civilians in insidious raid tactic to evade Black Sea detection. Missiles sent to Ukraine may challenge Russian Black Sea fleet supremacy. I'm wondering what a Poseidon strike sort of threatened and said will do to this situation. I mean, does it have to be at that coast area? The way it's just almost suicidally insane to talk about what these Poseidon strikes are on your own coast and borders like this. But I wonder, what is it? You want to get that across? Is there sort of saying they'll do this or that, sort of that of this? Ukraine War Day 100. Raising the cost for Russia's naval blockade can avert a prolonged war. Russians may open fire from hijacked Ukrainian boat. Pivden South Operational Command. Dealing with the naval blockade of Ukraine, a diversity of views. Ukraine partially repels Russian Black Sea Fleet Army. These monsters don't get to say this stupidness about views anymore in these situations, just so they can babble off some have your cake and eat it too idiocy that's never valid logic or proof. The way they're getting massive crimes by the end of these conspiracies. But at this point, it's in no way freedom of the press, at least. Oh, they're sparking off this freak out we've heard of at the mill yards again. They started running it up, making it clear that all these heavy industry mill products that are supposed to be controlled out here, flipping us off, freaking out, are starting to do that automated freak out there. There goes one of them, never allowed out. Here go 3 of them. Here go some crazy buses, never allowed out. They just all show up and flip us off to the max like these monsters of the mill always wanted, where everything gets out all at once. They've always wanted, like these monsters. Flips everyone off, doing the maximum evil, loudness, crazy mill-like crime that they thought would be funny there, whatever's wrong with them. They're perfect forever ways of absolute torture, of maximum torture of these units of forever torture, the longest time to the maximum intervention it requires. Russians may open fire from hijacked Ukrainian blah, 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 blah. Ukraine partially repels Russian Black Sea Fleet Army. Crucial Crimea, why the illegally occupied territory must be returned to Ukraine. Russia-Ukraine war, break Putin's blockade of Black Sea wheat ports. Russian warships hiding behind civilian vessels in Black Sea, Ukrainian Navy. I wish these monsters could understand this grain they're fighting about is wasted. Just totally wasted. I mean, with what's gone down out there, especially with what's had to happen around these nuclear facilities, that grain is absolute waste. No way food anymore. Russia sends additional units to Snake Island, transfers two S-300 divisions to Crimea. Opinion, the West must help Ukraine and Russia's Black Sea blockade. Russians plot provocations in Black Sea using seized Ukrainian vessels. Ship carrying, let me bring up. See, there they go, not using war terms again, thinking they can play cops and robbers, pretend to be judge, and use illegal, invalid law terms that have never worked. They've always just been crime of war. Ship carrying Russian cruise missiles with possible total salvo of 8 missiles is in Black Sea Defense Ministry. Putin issues fresh warning to West over missile supplies. I think I'm getting into my ending sequence. Ukraine news. Live. Russia's stalemate, not an option in war, Zelensky says. There goes that freaking monster mill hell. Right at one of these vital points. So tired of this. It is such a perfect way of striking. No humanity can ever achieve, though. So stalemates are our chess term. That's it, man. This is good news. Check. Stalemate. This is it. There's like one logical loop here. One logical loop. I've got it from you, God Kings, getting it back to me, intelligence in terms of sports, not chess. They want a side out. All they have left is a permanent side out. It's a permanent side out. Checkmate imminent. This isn't just check. This is checkmate imminent. We all know it. Sometimes I like to do this, like then one pawn steps forward, checkmate. No matter what they do, no matter where they move, having them with one step to make back and forth of the same one step. You know, they step forward, they step back, or whatever. It's all they have in the stalemate of this check, with the checkmate being one piece moves. Maybe it's as much as just one piece moves, one check to it, one check step, from one step, checkmate. And the stalemate option in standard sports terms that carry over to war like chess doesn't really here. Being side out, like a football side out. I don't fully understand, but I think if someone goes out of the field of play where they're supposed to come back in fast enough to keep the play going, we might still have an infinite clock to run up some sort of special penalty if they side out right and stay out right, maybe go down for an injury or something. I'm not sure. During their time to get back in and not have a foul. Russia strikes Kiev for first time in weeks. Battle rages in East. As hunger crisis grows, Russia attacks grain terminal in Mykolaiv. Well, I'm hearing you, God King, looking at your picture, President Putin, wanted another side-out translation. I got the World Wrestling Federation side-out rules. I'm not sure are, but it's the ring-out. Ring-out instead of side-out. The way we can have infinite ring-outs in certain ways. A ring-out just doesn't count as a win, at least. Ring-out doesn't count as a win or loss. We've sort of had these sequences of starting up this stuff where people just run out there and start it back up for their endless matches forever over their infinite side out. If the ring out doesn't count as their loss, although the event might be won, their matches for their belt contentions or their records or whatever don't count as their loss in these ways of it being one versus many combat or wrestling, sporting, individualized sporting units. The way we don't really have sort of Hulk Hogan's Royal Rumble, WrestleMania systems we've had in our video games to simulate these things. And the way these simulations should always prove to these idiot monkeys, stop bashing it, godlike people with these abilities they can't control. It's because they have weapons they want to play with that are toys to them. And they're afraid of. So they think they'll work. The way those people that call them toys don't believe. Like a horror movie, as hunger crisis grows, Russia attacks grain terminal in Mykolaiv. Putin threatens new targets if U.S. supplies long-range missiles to Ukraine. Explosions rock Ukraine's capital after weeks of relative calm. I'm reprising the news I've already gotten through. I did get it again fresh, though. Russia bombed a rail car repair facility in Kiev. Russia says, I'll pop this one out. These monsters have to stop putting up buildings on rail lines that aren't allowed, or any sort of structures. We've had this problem forever with them. The way they're just always against technology. You think they can just do whatever. Say they have thoughts or something. They're just murder mills. They won't stop. Probably happened because we were moving stuff like that on the rails. It's part of the system. And they found a way to just break it down and plop it around. I've got a lot of stories about this I don't want to get to right now. But I basically understand in my units of the way I built the rails in a lot of ways. I'm the one who was doing all the TNT demolition destructions. And I'm the one who was the only one allowed to work the mills. And I remember our first units of heavy industry, industrial style housing units, like the Sears houses or whatever. With this full comprehension as I review my memories, they just managed to steal some Sears housing prototype pieces off the trains and get them off the tracks to a way that looked like a neighborhood. To start this up, the way none of it's allowed, we need to slash and burn it all, build over. For what they've done, Russia says strikes on Kiev, destroyed, tanks donated by West. Putin sends warning to U.S. amid new strikes on Kiev. Russia hits Kiev with missiles. Putin warns West on arms. Russia hits Kiev with missiles. Putin warns West on arms. Putin warns Russia will strike if West supplies Ukraine with longer-range missiles. Russia fires missiles at Kiev, shattering weeks of relative normalcy. 4 Russian missiles hit rail car repair plant in Kiev. Russia hits Kiev with missiles. Putin warns West on supplies. Putin warns West, Russia will strike harder if longer-range missiles supplied. After bombing Kiev, Putin says Russia will strike new targets over U.S. aid for Ukraine. Putin warns of strikes over missile supplies as blasts rock Kiev. Putin says Russian anti-aircraft forces cracking enemy weapons like nuts. UK to supply Ukraine with rocket systems. Kiev airstrikes hit train repair facility. Russia says Kiev strikes destroyed, tanks donated by West. Russia hits Kiev with missiles. Putin warns West on supplies. Russia says it destroyed tanks supplied by Eastern European countries and strikes on Kiev. Kiev strike. Moscow claims it destroyed tanks supplied by Eastern European countries. Live updates. Italy summons Russia ambassador over comments. Vladimir Putin claims Russia has destroyed American weapons in Ukraine. Russia puts sanctions on 61 U.S. nationals. U.S. upgrading arms to Ukraine reveals selfish foreign policy. Ukraine recovers bodies from steel plant siege. Ukraine at day plus 102. SSSCIP on cyber war. Russia will strike harder if longer range missiles supplied to Ukraine. Putin warns West. There went, moved around, so it means everyone in every way that time. Lethal rocket strike in Sloviansk as Russia moves on Donbass. Russia unleashes hypersonic missile on NATO supply line inside Ukraine in desperate bid to stop arms. It's probably crossing the border or something. Don't humiliate Putin. Division showing West Ukraine support. Swedish government survives no confidence vote with help of former Kurdish fighter. Kurds in Sweden on edge as Turkey presses government to ditch them in exchange for NATO membership. Sweden's government averts political crisis with last-minute deal. Swedish government threatened by vote of no confidence in Justice Minister. Sweden's government survives after MP secures pledge on Kurds. Swedish Justice Minister survives no confidence vote. Swedish Prime Minister preserves cabinet as vote against minister fails. Swedish government narrowly survives no confidence vote. Swedish opposition seek to cut the moment, please. Swedish opposition seeks to cut ties with YPG supporter MP amid NATO bid. Swedish government survives key vote amid troubled NATO bid. Erdogan wants Swedish PM to fire defense minister. Swedish government faces tough no confidence vote. There goes a stupid cop term, but it's still like idiot business, idiots. You don't get to run governments like business. You can't just fire people like that. You got a proper term like we're using. You can't just be an idiot like an idiot faker boss. Some idiot retard inbred that freaking got it by some family retarded inbreeding forever. Just does whatever he wants idiotically, like these terms are universal. You have to use the appropriate terms. You can't fire someone that's some special command rank under a god that's in no way a civilian or anything near that. You can't even fire people who have certain contracts in business. I'm just tired of these idiots who think they can do business that are just idiotic morons playing inbred rapey daddy or some dumb bogus bullshit. They don't even fucking know words they're fucking using because they've heard them like they're just singing goddamn songs they think apply that don't. Swedish government faces tough no confidence vote. Turkey, NATO, veto drives Swedish culture clash around Kurdish minister. Sweden's Turkey stance to determine government vote of confidence. Swedish MP Erdogan is against me because I fight for Kurdish rights. Swedish government survives key vote amid troubled NATO bid. Erdogan wants Swedish Prime Minister PM to sack defense minister Holmqvist over support for Kurds. Report. There they are, just babbling bitch fight. Fucking idiots playing cops and robbers and fucking cowboys and Indians. None of them fucking have a chance at knowing language. They're just making the fucking noises the TV makes and then goddamn trying to recreate the fucking scene, sort of. So they don't fucking do. They just play their idiot games of fucking raping this shit down to chunks they think can fucking be put together and claimed what they were before they were raped to the fucking chunks, making them not what they were. Swedish Prime Minister threatens to resign if Justice Minister is ousted in no confidence vote. Swedish government poised to survive confidence vote. Swedish government survives no confidence vote as former Swedish government survives no confidence vote as former Kurdish fighter abstains. Swedish MP Kakabave says she won't vote against Justice Minister. Swedish government crisis leaves NATO membership bid hanging in the balance. I'm so tired of these popularity contests where they think if their numbers are high enough they can just turn into retards and say just because it's so many of us when the stuff never gets to work this way. Artards, retark, and retarkicals. Iranian Kurdish MP holds the key as Sweden's government faces no confidence votes. Problems with these Artarks when they start saying they're idiotic retarkicals. Because I say so. Because we say so. Because we say so. Because so many of us say so. Because we all say so. This is where we waste them. Starting to regain my memories of the Great Flood. This is that sort of incident need. God promised never to do it again. And the way it sounds like it's Satan's turn of the Sarmat systems. Sweden Prime Minister to step down if Justice Minister is defeated in no confidence vote. Former Kurdish fighter key to survival of Swedish government. Swedish premiers row with opposition may complicate NATO bid. Our Turks. Swedish PM threatens to resign if Justice Minister ousted in no confidence vote. Playing prom king, prom queen. Inbreed forever to the end of existence for these things. Sweden's government survives confidence vote amid tensions with Turkey. Former Kurdish fighter key to survival of Swedish government. I'm burning out. I'm hearing my call from the intelligence. On to the next one. Come on, let's just. Activists hail Biden's use of security powers to boost clean energy. Here we go back to that Defense Act thing. Biden draws heat for invoking Defense Production Act to boost solar panels. Bringing solar energy to Kansas City. GOP Senator rips Biden for overuse of Defense Production Act. Solar firm blasts Biden for interfering in trade case. Biden suspends tariffs on solar panels from Southeast Asia amid measures to boost SUP ... supply, something or other. Ukraine retakes parts of Donetsk amid brutal street fighting. World Bank slashes global growth forecasts. It never ends. I was happy with this piece, though. Under that one I just said. Zelensky, on Etsk and Lai Sai Chanks are dead cities. Ukraine successfully strikes Russian targets on the southern front, says General Staff. Russian attack destroys warehouse of major Ukrainian commodity terminal, company says. UK boosts Ukraine support with high-tech missile systems. That's right, I'm trying to use the term boost like that gang slang of stealing. UK defines Putin's threats. We'll send Ukraine high-tech missile systems. I'm telling you. It's done. They're gone. It's just algorithms and murder mills. They think they get to define what you said, huh? They don't even know language that validates. Russian attack destroys warehouses of major Ukrainian commodity terminal, company says. Putin threatens wider bombing if Ukraine gets longer range missiles. And get into, I think, my last three big units here. South Korea, U.S. showcase air power during U.S. officials' Seoul visit. I'm pretty sure we got espionaged again. U.S. allies fly fighter jets amid North Korea tensions. China accuses Australia and Canada of disinformation over jet encounters. These were the freshest, that's why I'm repeating them. Zelensky says Ukraine troops not capable of advancing without more long-range weapons. U.S. seizes super yacht. Live updates. Ryanair under fire for asking South Africans to prove nationality with Afrikaans test. That's a language. I think it's been shored up that like anything that's an African has to speak Afrikaans if they can claim any sort of African language, an official language of Africa, making any sort of African allowed out of African over it having the abilities of language to succeed at being allowed out of Africa to a place requiring language that Africans solve. I sort of know Africans. I've studied it a little with my translations. I know the basic words I like to use, like slaves and parents and children and God and some stuff like that. Kinderschlaue. It's a special type of slave. It's sort of like parent slave. Schlaue, slave. I wonder if they got any words at all they can use when they start up this fight forever stuff. Because they're just weapons that attack that can't use language. I'll move on. I don't think I'm going to say any more of those words, my basic words of trying to get things across. And then I just talk about work for the slaves and how the slaves work and stuff. And then it covers almost everything that we've ever confirmed any sort of use of communications by in language. It doesn't have to be words and sounds and stuff. Russia says 2 Ukrainian ports ready to ship grain, but Kiev must mine coast. Alright, here we go to the big units finally. I'm going to take a short break. News about Ukraine. Russia says 2 Ukrainian ports ready to ship grain, but Kiev must demine coast. Plan to ship grain out of Ukraine dealt blow due to mines. Ukraine as it's happening. Another ship sent to take metal to Russia arrives in Mariupol. Ukraine completes first post-invasion seaborne iron ore shipment. Looting Russian Republic to create merchant fleet from cargo ships stuck in Mariupol. Ukraine governor warns of toxic acid leak. Pro-Russian forces share footage showing first freight vessel arriving in the port of Mariupol. First ship leaves Mariupol since Russia took the city. Separatist leader. Russian occupiers want to nationalize ships left in Mariupol port, metal being removed. Italian owner protests Russia's seizure of freighter at Mariupol. Russia says Ukraine ports can ship grain. In dark sign of Kremlin's grip, a Russian ship sails from vanquished Mariupol. Russian officials, hatred motive for sanctions. Russian vessel loaded with steel docked at Mariupol port as Kiev decries looting. Russian defense minister says Mariupol and Berdyansk ports operational, ready to ship grain. Mariupol port receives first cargo ships. Pro-Russian separatists to form merchant fleet from ships seized in occupied Mariupol. Another ship sent to take metal to Russia arrives in Mariupol. First Russian cargo ship leaves Mariupol since Russia conquered the city. Pro-Russian separatists to nationalize ships in port of Mariupol. Ukraine separatists to nationalize ships in Mariupol. Russia says Mariupol, Berdyansk ports ready to ship grain. Another ship sent to take metal to Russia arrives in Mariupol. First ship leaves Mariupol since Russia took the city. Another ship sent to take metal to Russia arrives in Mariupol. Separatists to nationalize ships in Mariupol. Another ship sent to take metal to Russia arrives in Mariupol. Russia says 2 Ukrainian ports are ready to ship grain, but Kiev must remove mines from the coast. First cargo ship leaves Mariupol since Russia took the city. First cargo ship leaves Mariupol since Russia took the city. Russia says Ukraine ports can ship grain. Russia media confirms extraction of grain, steel from Ukraine's ports. Chinese military to have exclusive use of parts of Cambodia naval base. China secretly building PLA naval facility in Cambodia. China is covertly building a naval base in Cambodia, reports say. China security building military facility in this country, report. China plans Cambodian military base on vital route for shipping. Concerning Albany's alarmed at China's plans for Cambodian naval base. China takes extraordinary measures to build secret naval facility in Cambodia. China, Cambodia, breaking ground on joint port project. Safer and smarter option after debacle in Pacific. China now plans to build secret naval base in Cambodia. Is China building a secret Navy base near the Singapore Strait. Chinese FM slams U.S. media report faking Chinese military base in Cambodia. Oh, Jesus. R-Tark and retarkicles. God Christ. When will the Saints get here? And God! Kazakhs vote to strip founding figure Nazarbayev of privileges in referendum. Kazakhstan takes a step toward democracy. Kazakh leader pledges reform after referendum win. Voters in Kazakhstan approve constitutional changes. Voters in Kazakhstan cast ballots on amending constitution. Kazakh President Tokayev promises reform after referendum win. Voters in Kazakhstan overwhelmingly approve constitutional amendments. Kazakhs vote for constitutional changes ending Nazarbayev's grip on country. Kazakh leader seeks political capital in constitutional reform vote. Kazakhs back sweeping reforms to end strongman's era. Kazakhstan set to vote on constitution reform in Putin-like process. Kazakhstan referendum, world news. Kazakh leader takes aim at socio-economic political paradigm. Kazakhstan amends constitution to weaken executive power following uprising. The people voted yes, the creation of a new Kazakhstan. Kazakhstan voters approved major constitutional reforms that strip ex-president's powers. Voters in Kazakhstan cast ballots on amending constitution. Final results show overwhelming support to limit Kazakh president's power. Kazakhstan constitutional amendments approved in referendum. Kazakhstan voters decide on post-Nazarbayev reform. DC Health confirms first orthopox and potential monkeypox case in the district. Two versions of monkeypox are circulating in the U.S., CDC says. Russia's envoy storms out of UN meeting amid allegations his country is weaponizing rape and food in Ukraine. Russia urged to end sexual violence in Ukraine war at UN meeting. Ukraine war, Russian army rape claims orchestrated by Western spin, says Nebenzia. Ukrainian and Russian forces fighting in the streets for Syeverodonetsk as UN warns of human trafficking crisis. Reports of sexual violence in Ukraine rising fast, Security Council hears. Ukraine envoy at UNSC, any concession to aggressor will be the way to a new war. U.S. Europe urge Russia to end sexual violence in Ukraine war. UN hears sexual violence used as weapon in war. Sexual violence cases in Russian war can't be excused or amnestied, report in UNSC. Ukrainian woman finds refuge in Aurelia, calls for more support. Chinese envoy warns against providing weapons to Ukraine. That's good news. Remarks by Ambassador Linda Thomas Greenfield at UN Security Council briefing on conflict-related sexual ... File photo, Security Council meeting at the United Nations headquarters in New York. Ukrainian victims of sexual violence need reproductive health care, said Jan. Ukraine says Russia has killed or wounded 40,000 since invasion. Using anti-terror expertise to fight human trafficking in Ukraine. China warns West against sending weapons to Ukraine and imposing sanctions on Russia. 124 acts of rape, sexual violence documented in Ukraine. Humanitarian crises. Ukraine is turning into human trafficking crises. UN envoy. UN says women, children fleeing Ukraine war being targeted for trafficking and exploitation. UN official presses for action on sexual violence in Ukraine before it is too late. UNSC to hold another meeting over Russian war in Ukraine. Chinese envoy warns against providing weapons to Ukraine or imposing sanctions on Russia. Kiev asks for more rocket systems as Kremlin warns of potential strikes in Russia. One more on this phone, and then one more. That was the latest one I got on my other phone. Of the long ones. Ukraine needs many more rocket launches from West, says advisor. Ukraine war, the US and UK missile systems which will challenge Russia's artillery dominance. Overview of US security assistance to Ukraine, USNI News. Here's what's in Biden's $700 million military aid package for Ukraine. What Russia has said about US supplying Ukraine with long-range missiles. Britain to send M270 rocket launchers to Ukraine. UK boosts Ukraine support with high-tech missile systems. That sounds like how the US stuff can be upgraded, like they said. UK sending long-range missiles to Ukraine. UK to send cutting-edge rocket systems to Ukraine despite Putin threats. AP exclusive. Ukraine recovers bodies from steel plant siege. The US is sending advanced weapons to Ukraine with conditions. Russian senator urges missile strikes on US bases in Europe. UK to send long-range rocket artillery to Ukraine despite Russian threats. What's in the latest US military package to Ukraine? Biden these days actually looks like a toy in toy poses, almost primarily, and his wife as well, and most of the people around him in the pictures. Britain gives Ukraine long-range missiles to counter brutal Russian artillery. Biden's decision to send longer-range rockets to Ukraine, what to know. Russia says it will push Ukrainian forces back to defend against longer-range weapons. Medvedev doubles down on claims Ukraine war is special operation. UK ignores Putin's threats and will send cutting-edge guided rocket systems to Ukraine that can hit targets nearly 50 miles away. U.S. adding fuel to the fire with new arms supplies, Kremlin. UK pledge to send Ukraine more rockets prompts Russian vow to push further into country. Biden announces new rockets and munitions to Ukraine. HIMARS, M270 systems to help Ukraine hold back Russian troops. Defense Ministry. Russia vows to take more of Ukraine if West provides long-range missiles. U.S. is sending rockets to Ukraine, Biden says. Ukraine won't attack Russian territory, Zelensky says. Ukraine says East under relentless attack. Biden, U.S. will provide precision rockets to Ukraine. Today's debrief. They got that set up with a D like from a D-Day. Ukraine to get HIMARS. China buzzes Taiwan. Green Beret planning cell. Election interference, ... Britain to arm Ukraine with long-range rocket systems. If neither U.S. nor Russia will accept defeat in Ukraine, there will be World War III nuclear war! Biden says U.S. sending medium-range rocket systems to Ukraine. Slippery slope! Just got a lot steeper. U.S. to send Ukraine advanced missiles as Russia holds nuke drills. U.S. to send longer-range rockets to Ukraine. Ukraine had to upgrade M270s, but sends them with M31A1s to Ukraine. New U.S. aid for Ukraine. HIMARS rockets, javelins, helicopters. Dangerous! Russia warns U.S. against supplying Ukraine with new arms. Russia extends control over key Ukraine city as U.S. plans to boost Kiev's firepower. Russia says U.S. rocket supplies to Ukraine risks drawing third country into war. UK pledges missiles to Ukraine. New U.S. ambassador in Kiev. Russia battles Fort Luhansk as Biden set to announce fresh weapons shipments. Morning news brief. U.S. to send more weapons to Ukraine. KK's, let's perform some more. Something. U.S. general proposes way of stopping Ukraine war. Alright, last unit from my other work phone. Russia suspends deal with Japan on fishing near disputed islands. Japan to freeze assets of 2 more Russian banks. Japan lodges protest against Russia for suspending safe fishing pact. Why Japan is getting tough on Russia now. Japan says risk of Russian LNG supply disruption at unprecedented level. Japan to freeze assets of 2 more Russian banks, 1 Belarusian bank. Russia suspends fisheries agreement with Japan. Japan looks to restart nukes to end Russian LNG reliance. Japan, Russia agree to fishing terms in waters off northern territories. Russian Foreign Ministry announces suspension of agreement with Japan over marine fisheries. Japan to widen export sanctions against Russia. Japan adds 3 more banks to Ukraine war sanction list. Japan weighs alternative to visa-free visits to Russian-held isles. Japan to impose sanctions on 2 Russian banks and Belarusian bank. Latvia PM calls for seizure of Russian central bank assets. That murder chopper went right over that time. They just won't stop. It never ends with them. Japan sanctions Russian banks, halts export of industrial goods amidst Ukraine war. Japan to forego salmon fishing in Russian waters this year amid Ukraine conflict. Russia suspends agreement with Japan on fishing near disputed islands. Japan lodges protest against Russia for suspending safe fishing pact. Wither Japan's Russia policy, lessons from the invasion of Ukraine. Global arms industry getting shake-up by war in Ukraine. In China and U.S. look like winners from Russia's stumbles. Poland with near total abortion ban to record pregnancies. Japan, NATO step up ties amid Russia's invasion of Ukraine. Russia's Lavrov canceled visit. A diplomatic scandal for Serbia. News about Syria, Turkey. Turkey tells Russia it will respond to destabilizing moves in North Syria. SDF will turn to Assad if Turkey attacks in Syria. U.S.-backed Syrian Kurds to turn to Damascus if Turkey attacks. U.S.-backed Kurdish-led forces say ready to coordinate with Syrian army against Turkey. U.S.-backed Syrian Kurds to turn to Damascus if Turkey attacks. Turkey to act when time is right. Akar says on possible Syria op. U.S.-backed Syrian Kurds, same one. Syria army should use air defenses against Turkish invasion, U.S.-backed forces say. Erdogan, Sweden, Finland need to act accordingly toward Kurdish groups for approval on NATO bids. Turkey's Erdogan pledges Syria incursion to cement buffer zone. We're getting into repeats here. Blinken warns Turkey against Syria offensive. What is behind Turkey's Syria incursion threats? Turkey to address security concerns on Syria border. Erdogan. Russia urges Turkey to refrain from actions which could escalate tensions in Syria. U.S. U.S.-backed Kurdish-led forces say ready to coordinate with Syrian army against Turkey. Turkey tells Russia it will respond to destabilizing moves in North Syria. Syria. Regime sends reinforcements ahead of Turkish army operation. Damascus. Turkey's aggressive threats violation of international law, sovereignty of Syria. Northern Syria has become Erdogan's punch bag. Turkey to rid Syria's Tal Rifat Manbij of terrorists. Erdogan. Russia raises military alert in Syria over Turkish operation. Blinken warns Turkey against launching offensive against Kurdish forces in Syria. Turkey targets U.S. coalition position in Syria for first time. Turkey is blackmailing NATO to justify its invasion of Syria. Russia warns Turkey against launching northern Syria offensive. Russia urges Turkey to refrain from military action in Syria. U.S.-backed Syrian Kurds to turn to Damascus if Turkey attacks. No one should try to stop Turkey's military op in Syria. Turkey to commit supreme international war crimes with new offensive in Syria. SDF commander raises concern over new Turkish threat in Syria. Syria war. Turkey's new border offensive is a deliberate test of the West's support. Turkey army ready for another military operation in Syria. U.S.-backed Syrian Kurds to turn to Damascus if Turkey attacks. Erdogan. Turkey's Syria operation could happen suddenly. Erdogan announces military operation in Syria's Manbij Tal Rifat. U.S. reacts to Turkey's attacks on northern Syria. Syria warns Turkey there will be no compromise on territorial integrity. Blinken voices U.S. opposition as Turkey molds operation in Syria. Turkey is playing off NATO against Russia with eyes on northern Syria. U.S.-backed Syrian force warns against new Turkish attack. Russia alarmed. Russia urges Turkey not to launch offensive in northern Syria. Erdogan says Turkey to rid Syria's Rifat Manbij of terrorists. Russian diplomat storms out of UN meeting after Kremlin blamed for food crisis. And I didn't get into full coverage of that. Woo! What a day's work, huh? Jesus Christ! Is this like every goddamn motherfucking report from Vietnam all at fucking once or what? I mean, what the fuck is going on here if not some fucking flicked off motherfucking fake ass life form these motherfuckers always wanted before they died of every motherfucking weaponized attack at all fucking times, shitfest, which is always fucking going on against I, with I having just fucking killed them all every time without being able to kill them all at once. So they fucking know, whatever form they are, they fucking want me to kill them, any of them, all of them, the way I have to, I will. It's fucking inbred. They'll never fucking stop this shit, but they don't fucking do this old shit to me. They don't want to fucking get up in my face or all that shit, because that's the easiest way for me to kill them these days. So I'm just world wrestling like the Hulkster! Woo! Advance to the end!